Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome to the Lotus Archives, the heart of arcane knowledge and the realm of Magic the Gathering. Guided by the sages at KLVD Studios, embark on a journey through ancient scrolls and powerful spells. From deck-building enchantments to legendary battlefield stories, we bring you the wisdom and wonder of Commander. Whether you're a master mage or just tapping into your powers, the mysteries of the multiverse are yours to discover. Let the magic begin.
Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to our next episode of the Lotus Archives. Today we got something a little bit special for you, and we are talking about the past. Yes, necessarily, these are some of the Boogeymen that Jack's Playgroup called them of about 10 to 15 years ago here. And these were some of the scariest commanders that you could have gone against back 10, 15 years ago here. Back when I first started playing, back when Commander was still in its infancy here. And we are going to dive in and figure out what made these cards so freaking scary. And are they still even viable today in
what
the
happened?
meta? Like, why did they fall off? So, Jack.
Yeah.
Let's get started here. What was that first commander? And these are in no particular order.
Yeah, no. So the first one I think we should definitely mention that I'm sure is on everybody's mind and was kind of the main go-to when we brought this up to others was Oloro Ageless Aesthetic. Aztec? He's got a fun name.
Yeah.
But for 3 and Esper, beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life. And whenever you gain life, you can pay 1, and if you do, draw a card, and your opponent loses 1. So far, pretty good ability as a 4 or 5 giant soldier, just chilling on his throne all Thanos style. He was a bit of a badass. But then he's got this last ability. Beginning of your upkeep, if he's in the command zone, you gain 2 life.
Yeah.
So this is our Eminence originator. This is the OG. Fella paved the way for all the other Eminence commanders that we have, all 5 of them that have come out of it. But this was... Yeah, if you wanted to build a gain life deck that was just centered around getting your life total as high as possible, Oloro was your best choice. In fact, he was one of your only choices if you wanted to go in Esper. Otherwise, you would be stuck with white or, black-white or whatever.
Yeah, he is very freaking good. And I had a deck. I had an Oloro deck. I'm sure you've played against him countless times, whether it's my deck or Buddy's decks.
Yep.
Oloro
I had one as well back in the day.
Yeah. Oloro is freaking disgusting. Very, very powerful. Now, why the hell did he fall off? Like, I'm looking at him and I was just
got
thinking,
better options.
Yeah. Like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm going to rebuild him. And this was a few weeks ago even. And I mean, yes, he is a 6 CMC, but that command zone ability is still very good. But life is so finicky now. Like, there's so many ways around that nowadays that someone can just negate that 2 life so easily where it's not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, over the past few years that life totals just, they don't quite matter as much. Like, the decks have fallen, not entirely out of popularity, but if we look at, say, like, life gain, as a play style, right, as a deck style, your best bets right now, according to EDH Rec, are Frodo and Sam. They get about 12,000, close to 13,000 decks built out of them. So compared to something like, even just maybe like a wall deck, right? A deck with just Defender beats with, big toughness. With Arcades, that's 18,000. So something as goofy as building walls is more popular than trying to gain as much life as possible, which I think is probably the biggest downfall to him. Like on top of having more eminence cards that do better things in the grave or in the command zone, um, there's just better options out there, which is like the power creep is there, though they're still viable. Like each of these commanders we're going to talk about are still viable in their own right, but there are just some other better options that if you wanted to go stronger, they're there. You could do that.
Yeah, and I mean, oh, excuse me. I feel like with Aloro he was such a big boogeyman back in the day
Mm-hmm.
because life was so important. And especially nowadays, so easy to kill someone with commander damage alone or freaking milling your opponent
Do
out,
infect,
infect, any
could
of
mill them out.
those. It's almost
You can
like,
pull off some infinite combo. Yeah,
I mean, unfortunately, life gain kind of has fallen way down into a freaking pit right now. And
yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see it make a comeback. It was always an interesting play style. But as of right now in the meta, I don't think Allura would be
I think
that
it would
great.
depend on the brackets. So like, which this just hit me as a fun little thought. I love that most of my thoughts all just hit me randomly while we're doing this. If the bracket system existed back in the day when these were at the top of their game, what bracket do we think Allura would be in? If you upgraded him as far as you could with the recommended cards and stuff,
Oh,
would Allura be able to manage? Like, what bracket do you think?
easily a, I mean, easily a 4.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he was ever CEDH viable, or ever will be, because he costs too much. But
he does. Yeah, and focus so much on life gain. Now, mind you, this is going back, like we said, 10 plus years ago. Like, a lot of these guys came out in like 2010, 2009, 2008. So this is going way back in back to the past year.
I mean, I think he definitely, if we had our current commander brackets back then, I would easily consider him a 4 if he was built correctly.
Yep.
I mean, especially with the whole game changers and all that shit. I know right now I could easily build him as a 4. Would he do very well in today's meta? No. But
It would be tricky to try to pull off, yeah, because we have really good cards that have come out recently that buff life gain and get things better. Like you could probably end the game. I wouldn't say quickly, because that's the other thing too is that a life gain deck like this isn't really. It's not known for its speed
no.
per se. As one of its biggest combos being Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond, those are two 5-drop enchantments that yes will win you the game just on your upkeep if you're able to put them both out, but then you have to survive that turn cycle.
Exactly.
Which if you're in a pod of 4s and 5s and they see you play both of those, even if you play them both in one turn and that's your turn, good luck waiting around to your next upkeep.
Yeah, it's
In
you're
a
not gonna be
4 to
there
5 pod. It's just the likeliness of that is astronomical.
unless you're playing with guys that don't know what the hell they're doing. They're gonna
Which that wouldn't be a 4 to 5 pod.
no.
Yeah, that'd be maybe a 2. But if you play this in a 2, you're like where they sit today, they're decent, right? They're solid, good commanders that I'd honestly like to see more people play. I'd like to see more people play some of these guys.
I mean, and like I said, like
But I think,
there's a good chance I'll probably rebuild my Aloro at some point. What bracket I
yeah,
build him in? Yeah, we'll see. But
he can be a solid 3. I think he can be a solid, decent, upgraded commander that can sit in the 3 spot and play pretty comfortably with other decks in that area.
yeah, I think he could easily go into a 3, but it'd have to be a life gain, Pillow Fort, group hug
Yep.
style deck, I think. You really can't do much with him because it's not like his ability is that great nowadays. Um,
I mean, he would have to be in play for you to draw that card, is the other thing.
exactly.
So if you wanted to get the card draw plus the life loss from others, you could do that. Something funny you could actually do with Allura that I've seen some people do, and I've even attempted myself, is there are decks you can build in those colors that have absolutely nothing to do with the commander. So you could build just like a janky other wild, maybe like an Esper artifact deck,
Yep.
and just keep a Loro in the command zone forever to gain incidental life. Like, oh, just every turn I'm going to gain 2 life. And that could get annoying depending on the pod you're in, right? If you're in just a regular decent 3 pod or even a 2, be like, oh, it's a Loro, but it does all this other random crap. You're still gaining that 2 life every turn. So that's still going to, you know, cause you that incident life gain that could cause problems or could just be a nuisance to your opponents.
Yeah.
Which could be kind of fun.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. But Aloro, I would still consider him a solid pick for a commander if you really want to go that route. There's
Absolutely.
definitely better options, especially in Esper nowadays.
Yeah, Esper's gotten a lot of good love.
But with our next one, I'm going to talk about one of the first decks that I played against on this list. And I was telling this story to you earlier. And it was in my first play group that I was a part of. And we had this one girl show up for the first time. And we told her, all right, we're all playing precons. So just bring a precon. Mm-hmm. I want to say I was playing a Rabo. My buddy Dennis was playing a Minioplasm deck.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Buddy Anthony, I forget what he was playing. He might have been playing either Anala or a Dragon. And she showed up with Kalia of the Vast. And I didn't think anything of it. This was when I first started playing, mind you. And playing seriously, that is. And after the game, when she destroyed us with this deck, and I did not believe it was a precon for the longest time until they actually pulled it up and showed me. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, there's no way this is a precon. This is not the same level. But Kalia the Vast, for those that don't know, she is a human cleric for 1 in Mardu. She is a 2/2 with flying, but her biggest thing is, whenever she attacks an opponent, you may put an angel, demon, or dragon creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that opponent.
It's pretty deadly.
For a 4-drop, that's fucking disgusting.
Yeah. With evasion, too. So in the early days, that evasion of flying was...
Oh my god.
...really damn good, because it was, there wasn't much... There was reach, but a lot of people didn't play it. It was always seen as just, like, the penoptimal, like, best type of evasion you could get back in the day. And seeing her drop down, you give her haste with, like, a Lightning Greaves or some other form of quick haste, and you're plopping down big-ass demons, big-ass angels, and terrifying dragons that exist. Even back then, people drop in Avacyn Angel of Hope, casually drop an 8-drop, big old angel.
Potentially on turn fucking 3.
Yeah, if you're ramping decently, if you happen to get some solid mana rocks and all that. And this is actually what perplexed me a little bit about Kalia, because over the years, we've just gotten better mana rocks. We've gotten, like, arcane signets and things like that. We've gotten better demons. We've gotten better angels. We've gotten far better dragons than we had back when she was played. And she's even listed on EDH Rec as the second most popular Mardu commander. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, well, why are we talking about her then? She's second most popular. She's gotten a lot of good support. Well, we don't see her. Nobody plays her. I've yet to play against a Kalia deck in the past several years. Nobody I know plays her. And she's just not... I don't know.
I mean, like we were talking about this earlier. Like, it doesn't make any sense to us because she is the one card on this list that I still think could potentially be a bracket 5 commander. Potentially.
Yeah.
And nobody plays her. Yeah, she's popular. Yeah, she's always being built on EDH Rec. But just because you're built on EDH Rec doesn't mean people are actually playing her. I mean, is it one of those situations like how my not my Dragon, but how like my Urtai deck was when I first started building him, that I didn't want to play him because he was too good and too mean? Like,
That could be.
for people watching and listening, tell us what you think, because we are honestly still lost on this, because with all this fast mana now and the much better dragons and demons and angels out there, why isn't Kalia played more?
No. I'm not sure.
It makes literally no
There's
sense.
a lot of abusive ways you can mess with it these days. Like and hell, maybe I'll build it. Maybe I'll bite the bullet in my play group and I'll build a Kalia deck. Because I always thought she was wicked cool. Like the first time I saw her printed, I thought she was the most badass looking thing in the world. I couldn't believe that ability.
Oh my god, it's
I was
amazing.
I think I was still in high school when this card dropped, and I was like, holy shit, dude, you can play dragons and demons and angels, and you can play all this cool stuff, and just put them into play for free? What the hell? It blew my little brain to pieces. So,
like
I'd love to see her more often.
Yeah, part of me wants to build up my Kalia deck again and just build her up as good as I fucking can, just to bring her to an LGS, just so someone else can say, "Oh yeah, no, I've seen him." That Kava guy, he has a good one.
I think one struggle could be the 3 creature type aspect of it, which always kind of baffled me a little bit, or didn't not baffle, but which it always kind of seemed like which creature type do you focus on one over the others, or do you just try to run a balance of all 3?
I mean, I know when I built it originally.
What's the way to...
When I built her originally, I focused on demons and dragons.
Yeah.
But if I go and rebuild it now, I don't think I'm doing that. I'm getting... Because with Kalia, ETBs aren't really a thing. Because the cards aren't entering. Am I wrong on that?
No, they are. You're not casting them is the thing.
Or the casting cost.
So cast triggers don't happen, but ETBs 100% will. So you get something like Runescar Demon, where when at ETBs you get to look for a card. That will happen. But it's a 7-drop. So, the biggest boon of Kalia the Vast is being able to just cheat out these huge creatures. Because, as we know, like the biggest downside to Angels, Demons, and Dragons is their high CMC. Right, a lot of them are in the 6 to 8, maybe even 10 range in terms of their mana cost, due to just how potent they are. Your Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, Aurelia the War Leader, your Villas, Broker of Blood, right? Like all these crazy big creatures, and Kalia can just crop them out no problem if you put in some extra combat triggers and all that, because it's just on her attack.
Yeah.
Is the other insane thing. Like all she has to do is swing. You don't even have to get in with her. And she's cheap.
I mean, I think if I was to build it today, I would focus on angels and demons. Just for thematic
I would probably
reasons.
try to do it balanced. I think I'd balance all 3. But the other thing is, like, there could just be other decks that people want to play. Maybe they look at it the same way and be like, oh, she's, there's 27,000 of it built on EDH Rec. It's almost 30,000. Like, maybe it's too popular. Maybe people don't want to run something that's like that. Maybe they want to try and do something different. So,
yeah, who knows? But
she is good. I don't know if I'd call her as much a victim of power creep as others. She is one that was mentioned to us by our play group here as someone that they just don't see popping up as often.
Well, 'cause back in the day, you used to see her all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, now I haven't seen her since freaking it's been years.
Yeah. Alright.
All right.
So yes, that's Kalia. She's definitely, I think compared to these other ones, she's the highest, one of the actually she probably is the highest ranked
Oh yeah.
out of the lot as far as like what her actual popularity might be. She's more just like an honorable mention, probably that we can go with here.
Yeah. I mean,
The
she's just more one of those ones that were like, why don't we see her as much?
exactly, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
what's this next one we got, Jack?
So the follow up that I want to go over here, we got Rune of the Hidden Realm.
Oh
And this guy was a
boy.
cheeky cuck. Yeah, so for 2 in Bant, you get a Rhino Soldier, which is really cool. Vigilance and Trample 4/4. You can pay 2, tap him to exile another target creature and return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a blinking ETB matters commander, which back in the day was an absolute nightmare. There was one guy that David and I knew back in college that we played against who had this deck, and it was an absolute nightmare. The ETB combos and things that they'd be able to pull off, they were just ridiculous. You know, you got to do so much with so little that it was just obnoxious as all hell. Being able to completely blink and re ETB so many creatures with so many insane abilities, such as, let's see here, things like Muldrifter being able to just continuously draw cards, Brago King Eternal being able to exile things, which was obnoxious as hell, and Peregrine Drake being able to untap 5 lands. That could have essentially gone into an infinite combo with this if you had something like Raise the Alarm,
Yep.
which would untap all your dudes. You could essentially just go into an obnoxious combo with this. So, I'm not trying to drag too on with it, but the problem with these decks is that they drag. Right, you spend a lot of your turn blinking, bouncing, re-ETBing something that draws you a card, something that untaps your lands. It doesn't really go anywhere until you hit that combo piece. So,
Which is probably why we don't see him played as much anymore.
no. We do. It is a victim of power creep, I will say, because we did get not too long after Rune, or a few years down the road, we got Chulane. Right, we got the Teller of Tales and the Brawl decks. Which his thing was, if you cast a creature, draw a card, and put a land into play. And then you could tap 3, tap him, and put that creature back in your hand, probably recast it again. Now, I played Chulane for the longest time, and there'd be turns where you would just be cycling through, grinding away, and you'd be taking like 5 to 10 minute turns, but then nothing would happen. So I'd be hated out of games because I'd have a massive board of creatures, but then nothing was going on. Nothing was happening. It was just, I'm just re-ETBing the same creatures over and over and not ending the game. So the issue with Rune is that, well, I mean, he's not played nearly as often. He's only down to like, if you look up Blink decks or things, he's only got like less than 1% of stuff is built around him. He's just not, it's just not as popular as it used to be.
Now, if we had the commander brackets back when he was popular, what would you play, man?
The way that the guy I knew built him, definitely a 4. Just due to the sheer grindiness of it and how he put everything he possibly could in it to make it as good as possible. Because you gotta remember, back then, we barely even acknowledged the power level system that it was back then as it stood, right? We barely were like, oh yeah, 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, whatever. It's a Fuzi, it's a Fozzie, it's Gazi, it's fairy dust. You know, it doesn't exist, right? It's not real.
No.
So, it, we really just played whatever we wanted when we wanted, and we didn't really care. We were just like, I'm playing this, you play whatever you want, and we'll see what happens, basically. If you keep up, you keep up. If you don't, you don't. So, if the bracket system existed back then, it would have been a 4 without a doubt. Because he would have been, this guy threw everything he could in there.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So, for our next card here, I'm going to talk about a little dragon. And that is going to be Prosh, Sky Raider of Care. He is 3 black, red, green for a 5/5 dragon with flying. And he reads, when you cast Prosh, put X01 red kobold creature tokens. Oh, excuse me. Named Kobolds of Care Keep onto the battlefield, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast Prosh. Sacrifice another creature. Prosh gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Wow. A lot of words.
Yeah.
This was a big, scary thing back in the day.
This is what CEDH looked like back in the day, folks. This was CEDH right here. This guy, if you wanted to play the top of the tier, the best of the best of the best with honors, this was it. You didn't get much better than this guy.
And you guys might be looking at this now and be like, how the hell would this be CEDH? It's so big and slow. Well, it's...
Right, when you got a card like Corvold, Faker's King, right? You got Corvold sitting over here like, bitch, hold my beer.
Yeah. Like, I know we've talked about the Prosh and Corvold similarities in the past episode.
We did, yeah. We mentioned them in one previous episode.
But
so.
Prosh, he used to be that, holy shit, we cannot let this person even cast him.
Yeah, he was one that you see somebody put him on the table, that's target number 1.
Yeah.
Now, granted, compared to what everyone else might be playing, sure, he may not, you guys see what the rest of the table looks like, but 9 times out of 10, you ignore the rest of the table and you go for the Prosh player.
Yeah.
Because the second they cast that commander, you're done. The game's basically over.
Yeah. And, I mean, it doesn't seem like it because, what? First cast, you only get 6 kobolds on there. Yeah. Well, as long as there's mana and you sack Prosh yourself, then cast him again, there's more. And that was pretty much the loop. And
you play things like Ashnod's Altar to make a bunch of colorless mana. Play like Phyrexian Altar.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I only played him in the precon, but an optimized version of him, people were essentially sacking Prosh, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, you would sack Prosh, yep. So if you had, let's see, optimized scenario, right? You had Phyrexian Altar and Ashnod's Altar. So best case scenario, you got the 2 crazy things there. You could infinitely cast Prosh. Because you sacrifice him, you make it colored mana, you sack the kobolds. The Ashnod's Altar can cover the commander tax of at least the first one. And then he comes in, you make a bunch more. Comes in again, you make a bunch more. You keep making more and more of these kobolds that can keep paying for his taxes to where it just doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, I can pay taxes. I'm a fucking billionaire. Come at me with the taxes. It doesn't matter. Right? Like, they'll just keep paying for his things no matter what. And then eventually you get to a point where you have like 50 kobolds and you just sack them all to make Prosh huge and you kill somebody just out of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, he was easily CEDH back in the day.
Yeah.
You only played him when you wanted to win quick.
Essentially, yeah, because this deck can ramp like nobody's business. Being in Jund, you're able to ramp him out consistently, probably like turn 4,
Oh, easily.
you know? And getting something like this guy out turn 4 back in the day was just an absolute nightmare to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I think
But
with
now he's fallen out now.
yeah,
We've got so many other better pieces. Like we
I mean,
said, Korvold is there. If you want to play just good Jund, Henzi Toolbox.
oh my
Tori is
god.
out there.
I mean, I feel like
Which is
Prosh
just
he is the epitome of falling to the power creep.
yeah. He's really, fallen from grace there quite a bit compared based off what we've seen previously. It's like, oh, you want to play a good aristocrat token sack deck? Well, you just go Korvold if you want Jund. If you don't want Jund, you can go Orzhov and play better with Teysa, or Alenda, or any of these other better ways to do it. So you could still play Prosh if you want to, relive that past and be nostalgic for. You definitely can, and he can
Unfortunately,
do well.
yeah, he's just not optimal.
Not as well as he could have. Not as well as compared to something like Korvold or these other guys, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because he was the big scary boogeyman.
Yeah.
Not anymore. He got his mask pulled off.
He sure did. Just like this other guy.
All right, Jack, what do you got next for us?
This one I hold near and dear to my heart, actually. This is Ural the Miststalker.
Oh boy, what does he
I've
do?
called this guy Big Papa Misty, or Big Papa Ural. This is a 2 and Naya for a beast. Just a big old Yeti looking bastard. And he has basically pre-hexproof as it stands, right? So he essentially has, if he can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. As he came out back in 09,
Yep.
which was before the keyword hexproof was started being printed on cards. So when he's reprinted, right, which he was reprinted not that long ago, they just
2022.
gave him hexproof. Yeah, when he was printed a couple years ago, is just give him hexproof, right? Because that's just what he had, which is good. Glad they just shortened it out and gave him that. His other ability is what makes him also equally scary, is that he gets +2/+2 for every aura attached to him.
Jesus.
So if you wanted to go Voltron, this was your guy. Unless you wanted to go, like if you want to go aura focused, Ural was your dude. If you want to go equipment or exalted, you played Guy of Many Sigils or something like that, whatever his name was. He was in Bant, which he had like a bunch of other stuff. But this was the guy that I played a lot if I wanted to just straight up win the game. If I was tired of everyone's BS and I just wanted to end the game and take a win, get that W, Ural was who I played. As back then, while yes, board wipes and things existed, it wasn't nearly to the point that it is today, right? We had no farewells, we had no dams, we didn't have Winds of Abandon or crazy shit like that. But I think we had Austere Command,
Yeah.
and that was about it. Psych Rift was around, but you always had to overload it to deal with Ural. So essentially back then, Hexproof was a huge deal. Like, Hexproof is still obnoxious to deal with today.
It was even worse back then.
Yeah. So this dude essentially led the way for. Oh, I'm drawing a blank on the modern deck that runs it. It's like oh fuck. Pog? Is it Pog? Well, anyway, there's a modern deck that came out shortly after this guy that played hexproof creatures that you would shove a bunch of enchantments and stuff onto and just end the game with them.
Oh, damn.
So I'm sure somebody might comment the thing, but you would play things like Armadillo Cloak to give him +2/+2 and trample, and then whenever he dealt damage, you gain life, so it was like a weird kind of life gain thing. Shield of the Oversoul gave him indestructible for 3 mana, and another +1/+1, plus another +1/+1 because he was white and green. So you played a lot of these things that were cheap, right? Cards like Spirit Mantle for 2 mana give him +1/+1, and then protection from creatures, so he can't be blocked. But this would actually give him +3/+3 because of his innate ability. So Ural got out of hand exceptionally quickly, especially in Naya, as those colors can ramp like hell. Naya is very well known for being able to ramp like nobody's business, which essentially led to this guy being an absolute powerhouse years and years ago.
What would you put him in as far as brackets?
Oh, back then a 4, 100%. These all can very easily be listed as top tier 4s, maybe even CEDH from back in the day, as there just wasn't much in terms of ways to deal with him unless you just wipe the entire field. Which even then, sometimes didn't stop him because he could just come right back the next turn just as quickly as the deck can ramp. Commander tax wasn't always a big issue.
No. Especially if you have green.
Yeah. And if you had ways of, and there were a plethora of ways to give him haste with enchantments and various things like that, so you'd have to survive that first hit from him to maybe try to deal with him the following turn. And with all the enchantresses that existed back then, still, like, we still had the Verduin Enchantress, we had the Argothian Enchantress, right? So these guys still existed back when he was coming out.
Yeah.
And it also had a really good board wipe in Winds of Wrath that destroyed everything that wasn't enchanted. So that essentially just cleared the way right there. That was just like, all right, I'm just going to do a one-sided board wipe that existed for us in the Ural deck and kill everybody on the following turn, basically.
So, why do you think he fell off?
There's just better stuff. He's another good victim or sad victim of power creep. We had things, at least for in terms of Voltron commanders, there's just been a lot more solid options that have come out recently. Like, even if you want to go super recent, Cloud X Soldier is an excellent new Voltron commander that's come out. And even Dogmeat, right? Good old Dogmeat from Fallout is an excellent idea for Voltron as well. So there's just more popular Naya decks. Like, even if you don't want to go Voltron, if you want to do just better stuff with Naya, you got the Ridden Siri, right? Dogs and cats living together. They can do their stuff. You got Dinos with Gishtath and Pamaza. So there's just other better things people wanted to do.
It's unfortunate because it's a cool card.
Like, if
great
we were
artwork.
Oh, he's got massively cool artworks. So as far as Naya itself goes, he's kind of fallen out. But if we were to look at Voltron style specifically, which unfortunately Voltron itself is kind of a niche deck type. It's not played very often. There's still better, like, so Rafik of the Many is the one I was thinking of earlier as like the Bant Voltron style, where it's just one creature attacking alone. And he's got the Exalted mechanic, which is whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+1. So the idea there was just to stack all these creatures on the board that have Exalted, and you would essentially just swing with your one dude, and you'd get huge from there. So the issue with Ural, and why Ural's, I think, fallen out, is there's just been better options for that style, on top of just better Naya commanders coming out over the past few years. Over the past, 10 years or so. You've just had better options to play.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, that's for sure. Um,
Yeah.
do you think it could still be viable today?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I think if somebody wanted to put the, oh, excuse me, time and effort into him, bring him back into the light, I think he could definitely still hold his own, for sure. I think he could definitely still be definitely a solid 3.
Yeah.
Maybe even a 4, if you added all the crazy shit that we got today in terms of ramp and card advantage and things like that. I think he could be a 4.
All right. So, the next card that we got, and it's the second to last one. And this is going to be a card that, at first, it confused the hell out of me when I first looked at this, when I first started playing.
Yeah.
And that would be Omnath, Locus of Mana. For 2 and a green, a legendary elemental 1/1, and it reads: green mana doesn't empty from your mana pool as steps in phases end. Omnath gets +1/+1 for each green mana in your mana pool. Wow. So, I mean, I'm gonna assume that you probably saw this one played a lot more than I did, because this one was even kind of like pre or post Boogeyman era when I first started playing.
Right.
But
This was one that I saw a lot at my old LGS when I grew up in Mechanicville. A really good old buddy of mine played it, and this was essentially the pick for the green good stuff Stompy deck. Like if you wanted to just play really good big green ramp, Omnath was your pick. I played it for a hot minute after seeing it in action, fell in love with it, and it was just the go-to, right? Like there just wasn't. You had Azusa at the time as well, who was also really good, but that was pretty much your two. Like it was between Omnath, Azusa, and Zilvala, Heart of the Wilds. Those were basically your 3 picks determining what style of green deck you wanted to go for. So, and each one fit perfectly in the 99 of the other. And I loved Omnath. I thought it was the coolest thing. Big green jelly bean monster, as we called him, right?
yep.
That was what he was. Like, I'm going to play my big green jelly bean monster. And it was almost also like a pseudo kind of Voltron deck when I built it, as it was just, I'm going to make this big green behemoth huge and soak up all this mana and punch somebody in the face with it. And it was just a lot of fun. It was a
So
lot of cool, a lot of fun things to play with Omnath when he was just back in his early days, when he was just a young little green lad, not the crazy monstrosity he has become.
now, why was he so
Omnath today
good and
is,
scary back then?
yeah, it's like just being able to keep that green mana, and I am glad that Omnath never lost his, like, essence as time went on. Like, even his Phyrexian form, it's still focused on keeping mana
Oh yeah.
around, but just turning it black instead. Which makes sense when the Phyrexians got a hold of him. I do like that Locust of All, though. I always wanted to see a 5-color Omnath,
Yeah.
and being the lover of Phyrexia I'm very pleased that he ended up the way he did. I'm happy with it.
I mean, I'm surprised you haven't built a that one yet.
The Locust of All. Yeah, he's good. I might look into that one eventually to make just like a fun, cheeky 5-color deck.
But
As
so
far as for the mono green stuff goes, though, he was just a very good, solid ramp piece. Though today, we have other better things. Mono green itself is still quite popular, but people are playing, Bristly Bill. Finn the Fangbearer is
yep.
just number 1 for obviously good reasons. I'm surprised Bristly Bill isn't higher, given how good he is.
Yeah.
Because like Bristly Bill is bonkers as hell. So I feel like he should be a little bit higher up on the tier than some of these other ones, but Galta makes sense. Kona, of course, is disgusting. Marwyn, Elves is always going to be good. So, that's just kind of fallen out of grace a little bit. There's just better options for better types of decks to play. Where he's just not as, not as potent.
All right. I mean, could he still be viable today, do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. Obnath can definitely still be good. He can definitely still hold his own. You can 100% still, play him. I think the issue lies in his newer forms as well. Like, as Omnath has evolved over the years, there have just been better versions of him to play. So the question then is like, well, why would you just play the basic green version when you could play the teamier that does all this crazy shit, or the four-color version of him that goes absolutely insane with land drops? So the part of it is, again, I don't know if I'd call that power creep, but it's just the evolution of the game and evolution of this creature and his story going through his changes and where he ended up today. There's just better versions of him to play. So I think that's just a natural form of progression for him.
All right. So,
not too far off from our next biddy. Our last one.
What do you got for our last one?
Yeah. Marchesa the Black Rose.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we definitely don't see much of this one anymore.
Oh.
You good?
Oh yeah. No, I'm
Don't
starting to come down with something.
Oh, I hope not. So Marchesa here is a 1 in Grixis for a 3/3 wizard with the Dethrone ability that we don't really see too much anymore these days. This one kind of doesn't exist much anymore. I haven't seen it reprinted on any new cards in a long time. So Dethrone essentially is whenever that creature with Dethrone attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, you put a 1/1 counter on that creature. And then Marchesa also gives every other creature you have Dethrone. So it doesn't really matter, if they had or not. And whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, you return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step.
Wow.
So, Marchesa is pretty good. She basically ensured that as long as you're attacking the player with the highest life total, which most of the time you should be, right? Always go for the guy that's at the top. You basically ensure that all your stuff is going to get a counter on it when it attacks. And then you're also ensuring that should somebody block it to kill it, it'll come right back later on your end step. So one of the best things that I saw people doing with this was a unique form of ETB, almost pseudo like aristocrat style, where you're sacrificing a lot of your creatures for certain benefits or value.
Okay.
Right, you benefited off their ETBs, you benefited off their death. It was a lot of really wild recursion and sacrifice effects. Gesundheit.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. So you played things like Flare of the Hatebound, which was this really wild devil from way back in the day with Undying, that whenever it or another creature entered from your graveyard, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So, you make Marchesa out, you swing with a bunch of dudes that all get 1/1 counters on them if they attack the highest player, or the people that, whoever's tied for the highest life. And should they all die, well, they all just come right back and ping everybody for a bunch. So, Marchesa's very good. She's very potent, very powerful. Kind of fallen off a bit as far as Grixis commanders go.
Why would you say she's fallen off?
Just better, more fun options. The style of deck that you would play with this, if you wanted to go something with 1/1 counters, I mean, there's just way better versions of 1/1 counter decks out there to play in different colors. And if you wanted to go Grixis, you could just play Nekuzar, right?
Yep.
And we've also got Sauron, the Dark Lord, which I'm currently in the process of putting up together. And it's just like, if I want to play a really badass Grixis deck, why would you not go with the Dark Lord of Lord of the Rings, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So she's just kind of, she's ranked 5th right now as the most popular. And you got Anala, the wizard tribe right behind her. And then you got Edward Kenway. So it's kind of funny to see, actually, these Universes Beyond commanders are actually kind of creeping up on our traditional original MTG cards in terms of popularity and use.
I
And they're kind of knocking, the old stuff down a bit.
I think a lot of that is due to power creep, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially some of these
Well, is it power
universes.
creep or is it just love for these IPs? Right? Because
I
then this kind of opens up another issue of these IPs coming in and,
I think it's a little bit of both because I mean when uh, Wizards first started doing the secret layers, what was it? The Stranger Things one was one of the first ones, I believe. And
right, they weren't like full on sets. They were just like, oh, here's a cute little collab
yes, uh,
that are other cards just reprinted as this, like with Godzilla,
yep,
right? When they had the Ikoria stuff, it was like, oh, it's this card, but it's printed as Godzilla because it's big monsters and kind of fun,
yes. Well,
right? It wasn't a full set dedicated to an IP.
you had the Walking Dead set or Walking
Yep.
Dead Secret Lair. Then you had the Stranger
Well,
Things
those were
one.
brand new cards.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Walking Dead was brand new cards, and then a few
Yeah.
years later, they came out with a Magic version of them, so to speak,
Yep.
to put the Magic lore back into it.
Yeah.
Because they realized how good
Which
these
was
cards were, I think.
Yeah.
But I
So.
think at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's a combination of love for the IP that they're bringing in, as well as power creep. Because some of these cards, they are much, much better.
They are very good.
But,
Like Sauron is just bonkers. I
oh
mean,
my
the dude
god.
is. It's an insanely powerful card, right? Ward from legendary stuff. Whenever anybody casts a spell, you make an army. Whenever that army hits, the ring tempts you. If the ring tempts you, draw 4 cards and discard whatever little hand you have. He's good. He's just a massive, horrifying monstrosity, which I love. So,
Yeah. So,
as far as these go, they're all still very potent, right?
yes.
They all still have their uses and their niches, and they all can still be viable commanders for you to use and play with, which I recommend people do. I recommend people play with these cards. I recommend they use them, check them out, give them a shot, build up a fun deck with them. They can be budget friendly. A lot of them can be. Like Kalia of the Vast actually can be a really solid budget deck. If you look her up on EDH Rec and stuff, you can see a lot of the cards that are used for her. A lot of them are under $1. A lot of the older, more like mana value pricey stuff is pretty cheap. I mean, Avacyn will cost you a decent penny because it's Avacyn.
Yeah.
But if you want to play a bunch of the other ones that are really solid, they're cheap. You could build a decent deck out of for easily under $100.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
those were our big bad boogeymen of the past. And where are they
Very
now?
terrifying cards.
But
They're doing okay. They're
yeah,
not doing as good as they were. Some are doing a little bit better than others. But they definitely could use a bit more love. I mean, we are still getting good auras and stuff for Ural, and some of them are definitely getting up there as far as other stuff. But hey, yeah, what
but
else can you say?
exactly.
They're in tough spots,
Well,
most of them.
good news. We have started the Edge of Eternity's spoilers.
We have.
Oh boy, I wasn't sure what to think with this set coming out, but looking through the artwork, holy shit, am I excited. The artwork is fantastic in this.
Oh, it's beautiful.
We got our 2 face commanders from the Commander Precons, and they both look great. We have they'll both be up on the board below us here. And you have Kilo and Zarl. Kilo is a 3/3 robot artificer with haste, and it reads, whenever Kilo becomes tapped, proliferate. Well, fuck.
Pretty good.
And then
That's not too
Zarl
bad.
is a 2/5 flying insect druid, and it reads, you may play lands from your graveyard. Whenever you sack another non-token permanent during your turn, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to Zarl's power on up to one other target creature. Okay.
It's not bad.
I'm kind of more interested in Kilo myself. The
Same.
proliferate is fun.
Proliferate's good. Cool space robots are good. The spaceships that we're getting spaceships.
Yeah,
now,
spacecrafts.
Like spacecraft, which are interesting. And this came with a rule change.
Yes.
Actually, have you seen this?
We were talking about it in the our group chat there. I don't know how I feel about it yet.
It's weird. So the rule change is this: you can use legendary spacecraft and vehicles as your commander if they have a power and toughness bar. And that's it. So any legendary vehicle can now be your commander, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's no longer unique to something like Shorikai, which was given the special little text that said this card could be your commander, making it relatively unique as one of the only things you can do that with. Now it's just open to anything. So our one buddy's like, oh, I'm going to build a deck with the RMS Titanic as my commander now, because you can do that, or you can use the Perdwin from Fallout, which I might do. I like the Perdwin. The Perdwin's pretty badass.
I mean, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how it's going to change the game.
It won't. That's the thing. So here's my hot take on this. It won't impact it nearly as much as I think some people might think.
No.
As a lot of these vehicles weren't designed originally to be commanders.
No.
They weren't printed with abilities or things that put them up to that pedestal, right? Like you look at something like Shorikai, right, which was printed with the intention of possibly of being your commander. So it was given the abilities to do so. It has a cool draw card ability. It has a way to make pilots. It can do things on its own that are valuable as soon as it comes in. A lot of these other vehicles, they don't really have that. They need to be crewed. They need to do other things to get their stuff off. Like, I don't think it'll have a huge impact. We'll have to wait and see what spacecraft come out.
I have a feeling it's just going to be one of those weird little niches that people want to do just to change it up. They'll probably be bracket 1 or 2 decks for the most part. But in other news here, we got Tezzeret back.
Yeah, good old Tezzeret is finally colorless.
Yeah, and he is the cruel captain. He is down on the board here. We also got a unique enchantment that I know you were talking about earlier in our group chat, and I am I'm super excited for it as well.
I need this.
I
need this very much.
Fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's 2 and 2 black, and it reads, whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. At the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creatures, sacrifice Sulfura, then put a creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters.
It's amazing.
That's fucking awesome.
It's a beautifully gorgeous black hole that I just love. I mean, I love all things space. I love physics. I love the astronomy of it all. So this is going to be a super cool set. We are getting reprints of Shocklands.
Yep.
Are coming back. So Breeding Pool, Godless Shrine, Watery Grave, Stomping Ground, and Sacred Foundry are all being reprinted in this set with gorgeous looking artworks. Like Godless Shrine beautiful artwork on that.
Dude, this artwork, it reminds me of something that's straight out of like a sci-fi book. It's awesome.
Absolutely. So hats off to the design team of these.
And
these lands look insane.
it looks like for the first time that I've seen in a while, they had the same artist do all of the full art lands. And
Yep.
there's 2 different versions of each one too, mind you. And they're all done by the same gentleman by the name of Adam Paquette. Hats off to him, because
hats
these
off to this guy,
are
man.
absolutely fucking gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Yeah. They're beautiful as hell, man.
And I'm going to be getting a set of each of these and hanging them on my walls.
Yeah. They remind me of like those old time like 80s style space odysseys, like old films like Stargate and things like that.
Yep.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this whole thing, like old school like Star Trek and things like that, where even like some Doctor Who stuff, even like their space adventures and stuff, and like early Doctor Who.
Oh, exactly.
Is super cool. I wonder if they'll take some inspirations from Star Wars. I hope they do.
I have a feeling they're not going to go Star Wars route. It looks to be more vehicle based almost, especially with them coming out and saying vehicles can now be a freaking commander.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see some cool. We're gonna see a lot more of these spacecrafts.
Yeah.
Coming out, which I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping to have something like, if they would just give me a Death Star like spacecraft to make as my commander, I'll be happy. I'll be content with that.
I have a feeling we're gonna be seeing a Star Wars UB.
Yeah.
But
that would be cool.
Last but not least, the set I know I've been personally waiting for, and I know you're super excited about.
I'm pretty stoked about it, yeah. I can't believe we already got our first one of it.
We got a first spoiler for Avatar: The Last Airbender. And we have our Avatar.
Almost exactly what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah. This card looks fucking insane. I'm super excited to see what firebending is.
Yeah, what all these like bending things look like. Bro, Water Tribe, man. Water Tribe.
Yeah.
So
I hope Water Tribe has.
What that looks like.
Hopefully, Water Tribe has something to do with healing, which would be really freaking cool.
It might. I'm expecting more of like ice and stun effects. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm expecting, and like some crazy water stuff, like just, elements of that. But I loved this show as a kid. I love it even to this day. I don't care. Damn near 30 years old. I'll still say Avatar is a fantastic show. I don't care how old I get.
Oh, it's an amazing show. But
if we get a badass Sozin legendary, I'm gonna build it.
Oh my god!
You gotta build up Mark Hamill, man.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
All right, everyone.
I hope he's red and black.
I hope so.
I know he's trying to shut me up.
All right. So
I can talk on that for hours. Anyway, yes.
With that,
good stuff. Good stuff coming forward.
As always, I am Kava.
This is Jack.
And we'll catch you guys all later. Until next time.
See ya.